There's some people out there who can't handle death. They can't talk about it. You know, they don't even know how to process their own personal emotions, let alone acknowledge grief. You know, we have all our emotions over here. I feel like grief is in its own category. Like, you know, how deep it was and how deep it is still to this day. Auntie China's government name is Geraldine Hendrickson. She was like 5'4", probably like 130, kind of like a real tiny little lady, but her personality was bigger than life. She was arrested in April 1995 for the murder of her abusive partner in self-defense. She endured 3 trials, 2 different judges, 2 juries. So she was in there for 18 months. It was a long, agonizing 18 months for my family for multiple reasons, not only because of the racism and bias that she experienced inside the courtroom, the lack of support from the people who are there to protect and serve justice, right? That justice was never meant for her. It was never meant for Indigenous women. So while she was in that courtroom, you know, people were laughing at her. The experience was extremely traumatizing for her, for my whole family, for her children, and we still feel the effects of that today. My auntie was released. She fought tooth and nail to heal, to try to move forward in her life. She came to Alaska to try to connect with her family, heal. You could see the 2 pictures, the pictures of before she went to jail, then you see this picture. And in this picture, this is after she got out. You could literally see it in her face. Her spirit is gone. About 16 months after her release from King County Jail, she came back to Seattle. She ended up relapsing in another abusive relationship with a different partner. I remember like the day we got the call, like we were in our apartment in the Kingways, and I remember my mom picking up the phone, and you could just hear it in her voice. The phone drops, and I know immediately like somebody had died. My mom had told us, you know, Auntie China's, you know, she's gone into the spirit world. As an adult, after going through 1,000 pages of court documents and having enough awareness within myself to get specific details of the story for the purpose of, I was gonna say justice, but justice ain't gonna happen, because if it was gonna happen, it would have happened 21 years ago when she was murdered. So to want to create healing for my family, this man was arrested. He was then released with no charges because of my auntie's history of domestic violence. And that is just like the double whammy, right? Just system, just continuously creating this cycle of systematic oppression, genocide, colonization, without directly having to do it. It's all these systems that are in place that got my auntie murdered.
In the years since losing her aunt, Chelsea has done activism work around MMIW, or Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. Now, she's exploring how that work relates to police and prison abolition, and she's looking to the work that many Indigenous women activists are already doing for inspiration.
Like Roxanne White, Deborah Parker, Abigail Echohawk, Carolyn DeFord, they're leading with love, with the idea of going back to our ancestral knowledge and not resorting or depending on the criminal justice system.
You know, you call the cops because you need help, right? That's what you're supposed to do. That's what they claim. They claim to be benevolent, but often they come with the promise of further surveillance, further really kind of invasion into your intimate space.
The goal of the empire isn't to bring our people home to our communities and land. In fact, the very existence of the state, the existence of the carceral system is to complete genocide against us.
Chelsea also cited systems that pre-colonial Indigenous communities had for addressing harms. Her tribe had a council of 7 matriarchs that would help determine what accountability looked like.
That system of restorative justice was already in place prior to settler contact. We're just trying to reclaim that knowledge that was taken from us, that was stolen from us.
Chelsea is still exploring what abolition means to her. She's not sure she believes that nobody should be locked up, but she says Indigenous people definitely shouldn't be.
I understand where people are coming from when they're like, but what else can we do? And the answer is, if the carceral system wasn't there, we could do literally anything else.
Funnel that money into the healers in my community. This is a crisis. There are people missing. There are people who are dying, and being murdered. So now we have to actively manipulate the system and create our own searches, be creative and resourceful on our own, because the justice system, once again, is not looking out for us. It wasn't put in place for us. So now we have to rely on each other.